think I'm gonna get some hate for this one, but hot take, the phrase, if buying isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing, is absolute nonsense. Here's why. Let's focus on the first part of that phrase. If buying isn't owning. First of all, any of these companies would take up contention with that because they would say you didn't buy it, you bought a license to it, which is not the same thing, even with a physical product. That grants you a license to the software rather than an ownership of a copy. Now, I agree it would be nice if it did not work that way, but that does not change the fact that just because I wish it didn't work that way, that is, when you dig into the terms of services, how it works. And this isn't new. This is essentially how it has always worked. In fact, I remember distinctly when Adobe went to their subscription model with Creative Cloud in the first place. I remember having a conversation with an older gentleman in the tech and IT space, and he mentioned that this is how software used to be in the early days of computers. You were renting software and programs from bigger companies in the early days. You weren't owning copies because it might have been prohibitive cost-wise to be able to do something like that. Again, I'm not arguing that this is how I would like it to be. I'm just saying that the statement, if buying isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing, implies that if your payment towards the thing does not give you ownership of the thing, then taking that thing without paying for that thing is not stealing. Now, maybe I've misrepresented the argument, but that's how I come to understand it. And I think that's a nonsensical argument because just because your money going towards it doesn't mean you don't own it, doesn't mean that taking it without money isn't stealing. I'll give you an example. Back in the days of Blockbuster video, I rented the video. I paid money to have it in my possession, but I didn't own it. So do we then, by the same logic, say that because I paid money to it and paying money to borrow the Goonies on VHS doesn't mean that I own it, then taking it out of Blockbuster without paying for it and just keeping it isn't stealing, because if I gave money, I wouldn't have owned it anyway. Again, I know this isn't exactly the argument that's being made, because the argument is being made that these people are saying that you are buying it, which is the common understanding of the language that they use. They say that you purchase, they say that you buy, but again, they are saying that you are buying a license, a permission to use the software. They're not saying that you are buying the software, because they don't think of the software the way that you and I think of software. They don't think of the software as this that I hold in my hand, this Mario Party, right? You and I think of this as a nebulous thing, a thing that we can hold the way that I can hold this toy ice cream cone, and it is this separate from the person who made it. They think of this as an interface to a thing, not a thing in of itself. When you go to the Louvre, famous art museum, and you go and see the Mona Lisa, you pay money to see the Mona Lisa, and you are paying to have that experience. Is it then therefore logical to say that because my paying to see the Mona Lisa does not give me the ownership of the Mona Lisa, that therefore it is justified to steal the Mona Lisa from the Louvre and keep it for myself? Of course not. Again, I know that this is not exactly the argument that people are trying to make, but do you see the point that I'm trying to make? Is that the experience of media has long been, not just recently been, thought of by the media makers as something that you pay to experience, much the same way that you would pay to go to an attraction like a museum or going to an amusement park, rather than something that you pay to own a product of, like a toy wooden ice cream cone or this physical weight way back when. This is actually closer to the more founding experiences of most of these media. See, in the early days of movies, you didn't own movies. No, the idea that you would that they would make a movie and then you would purchase and have that movie for yourself was a completely foreign concept. What it was is that they made a movie, a moving picture show. What is a show? Well, a show outside of this concept of movies, where you might think of it, like a vaudeville show back in the day or a concert, a circus. These shows that you would go to was something that you go to and you experience. And so the category that movies started in was an experience, not a product that an individual owns. Similarly, the same for music, right? Originally, you would go and you'd pay and you'd hear someone perform music. And then much earlier than movies, we got things like phonograph records and the wax records and then the vinyl records and then cassette tapes and etc. Even games would have started out primarily as in terms of not necessarily the first video games, but the first sort of like widespread playing of video games would have been in arcades and arcade machines. You didn't go and pay to own an arcade machine. You went and you paid and you didn't own. You got to experience. I think that's where this whole mindset comes in, that from the production standpoint, you are creating an experience and people are paying to experience that experience. You're creating an opportunity for an experience. PlayStation at the time of this recording has announced that they're going to be taking away their physical sales of games on disc. And a lot of people are upset about this, but a lot of people have rightly pointed out as well that you already told PlayStation. If you're actually upset about this, then you're probably not the one who did this. But let me ask you this, even if you do still own a lot of physical copies of games, you probably have some digital games. You probably bit the bullet and purchased a license to a digital game at some point. And so we've told all of these companies with our dollars, whether it's CDs, DVDs, by switching over to streaming services and things like that, we've told them through our behavioral patterns rather than our nostalgic glasses what we actually want. And this is this dichotomy that oftentimes we on principle or want to make this big fuss about, like physical media and this kind of thing. There's all these trends you can probably see, probably even recommended on the sidebar right now, videos about like, I went back to completely physical media, and I know lots of people in my own life who never went away from physical media, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think for the vast majority of people, it's a nostalgia glasses thing where we romanticize this idea of physical media, but our habits and behaviors say something completely differently. It's like the person that's always like, oh, I really want to exercise more, but then they don't actually make the time. They're just waiting for time to appear, and it's never going to happen in their busy life. If you actually care about something, you will make the time. You will, or prioritize the thing, whether it's physical media or time, whatever. You will prioritize it. And what you prioritize shows what you actually care about. That is the hard truth. And so if we're not doing it, it's because we don't actually care about that thing enough to do it. And we have to be honest with ourselves. If we don't care about physical media enough to exclusively use physical media, and if not enough people have done that and put their money where their mouth is and actually only got physical media and refused to buy digital, not enough people have done that, then that has signaled to these companies that whether we say we care about it, we don't actually. We don't actually care enough. Enough of us don't care enough for this to have shifted the tide. And that's the hard truth. And so going back to the premise here, though, if buying isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing, I disagree. I disagree. As a creative, I disagree, because I could put out, say on my Buy Me a Coffee page, some exclusive material that you, through your Buy Me a Coffee support membership, gain access to. And a lot of these things, you could download offline maybe, and that's fine or whatever. But to hack into a Buy Me a Coffee, for example, without a membership because you don't own what's on there, and then download that and say that justify that as not stealing, is just nonsensical. Again, another example might be that, like, if the house down the street has the people in there, they don't own it, they're renting it, that doesn't justify someone else breaking into their house and like doing squatters' rights, because buying isn't owning. So I can just squat in a house and not pay for it because renting is not owning, or whatever. And that's just, because you could make that argument that buying a house isn't owning, because you're still paying money to the bank through a mortgage or whatever, or there's strata situations, or the city technically owns certain land things, or whatever it may be. Anyways, at the end of the day, we need to put a money where our mouth is. If you want to see physical media in your life, get it in your life. Buy it. Buy physical media and encourage other people to do. And don't compromise. Don't buy anything on Steam. Don't buy anything on the PlayStation Store. Put your money where your mouth is. Buy only CDs. Buy only DVDs. Cancel your Netflix subscription. And if that's already you, cool. That's awesome. But the reality is that's not most people. And until it's most people, this is the reality that's going to happen. And all we're doing by loudly chirping about it otherwise is not moving the tide. It's just making us seem like old man yells at cloud. That's my hot take. Take it or leave it. If you enjoy these hot takes, whether or not you agree with them or not, go ahead and like and subscribe so you can yell at me in the next one. No, I'm just kidding. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.